It's the biggest card of the year, and the podcast is dropping early. Whoo! Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, Clint McLean. And we have got to get right into it this week. Like I said in the intro, this is the biggest card of the entire year. The prelims could be their own pay-per-view card. I cannot tell you how stoked I am about this card. We have had solid card after solid card after solid card. It has been a great year of mixed martial arts. It has been the best year so far of my life to be an MMA fan. The matchups have been unreal. The fights have lived up to the hype, and it all culminates to this moment. This card is stacked from the very first fight all the way till the end. So we need to fire through the pleasantries to get to the capping, because I'm about to do something crazy. Let's get started with some shout outs. I can't be skimping on that, right? We are trying to get to 1,000 followers by the end of the year. You all are doing a great job of helping me along that way. We got a couple of new subscribers. It looks like we've got Dayton Fonsel 48 who subscribed. We also got 40 old beer belly dude. 40 ounce beer belly dude. Nice. I like that. We've got Nick Rodriguez, Charlie XTS. Thank you all for subscribing over there on YouTube. Everybody, first thing, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the show already, hit that subscribe button so you know when I drop a video. And thank you to everybody who watched and liked the random roundtable when we thought Masvidal Diaz was canceled. That was fun. That was a cool little video I dropped out there on YouTube. So those of you listening to the audio format, sorry you didn't get to hear that one. Give me a follow over on YouTube and subscribe. Give me a follow at Die Hard MMA Pod. That's where I like to go back and forth with everybody, and I try to reply to most of the comments in the YouTube section as well. So if you've got something to throw at me, if you've got a fight breakdown, if you've got any questions or anything like that, feel free to hit me up either on YouTube or on Twitter. Like I said, I try to get to everybody, but thank you all for the continued love and support. The numbers are steadily trending upward for the Die Hard MMA podcast, and I couldn't be more excited. I've got some big plans around the corner in the future, still working on some stuff. We probably won't be able to do anything groundbreaking until 2020, just because the end of the year, family, holidays, all that crazy stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. Real quick recap of UFC Singapore. It wasn't bad at all. So first thing, we hit Loma Lookbone-Mi. She was absolutely the right side in that fight and crushed it. I'm excited to see her in the cage. I do worry that she's going to be just a little too small when she gets to, kind of the mid-tier fighters in the women's division there. She should be an atomweight. You know what I mean? She's going to run into like a Michelle Watterson type situation where she just can't hold up physically, especially when she gets to the more wrestle-heavy fighters. But in this kind of a spot, it was perfect. Now, Enrique Barzola, he gave a real good account of himself, in my opinion. I was shocked when I saw the 30-27 cards. I thought really, at UFC Singapore, I think that the judging was off the entire night. Now, I tweeted out that I didn't think it was egregious. There was only one bad decision or robbery, in my opinion, but this is the kind of thing that I was talking about, because Enrique Barzola, there's no way he lost all three rounds, in my opinion. I think he very clearly won one round, and the fact that two of the three judges scored all three for Evloev, I kind of had a problem with that. I mean, it didn't affect the final outcome of the fight, but it was one of those things that when I saw that happen, I was like, ooh, the judges are a little off tonight. And we took a couple of shots, man. I'm not sad whatsoever about the way this night ended up. We could have had luck break our way just a little bit for a solid night, and unfortunately it didn't. We had the Fiziev White under 2.5 minus 120, and that did not come through. Fiziev was clearly the better striker, and he had White hurt several times. I thought he was going to get the TKO in round 2, and he completely let off the gas. He had White hurt so badly and basically rested for the final 2 minutes of round 2. And I was screaming at my TV. I was going nuts, because that's the kind of moment where you're like, he's got him. I'm going to cash my bet. We're good. We got this. But then he just decided to let up for whatever reason. I don't know if it was, trying to avoid gassing out and getting taken down, or if it was an octagon jitters thing, if he just had the game plan of, outclassing him for 3 rounds. You never know. But that was a bummer to lose that one, because I thought it was, in round 2, I thought it was a lock. So we hit Random Marcos. Oh, baby, I almost threw a second unit on that one because that line crashed. She closed it like about a pick'em. It was like minus 120 or minus 125 for Marcos. And I was so close to doubling down on her when that line got so short like that because she was just all around the better fighter everywhere. So that was an easy casher. I loved that play. And then Leonardo Strapoli. You know, my justification on this one is Strapoli round 3 is what I expected to see in round 1. He came out in round 3 with a sense of urgency, and he took over. If he had come out like that in round 1, you never know. Maybe we win that fight 2 rounds to 3 instead of losing it 2 rounds to 3. Now, maybe he gets cracked and he gets knocked out because he comes out over aggressive, and the reason that he won round 3 that way is because his opponent was, coasting up 2 rounds. Again, you never know. But my expectation of the fight was not that he would come out and fight down to his opponent's pace. I thought he would continue to push the pace. In fact, that was a big part of the reason why I bet him. So that was a little disappointing. Damian Maia caps the night off for us with a winning night, 0.4 units up. He absolutely handled Ben Askren, and that was another one that you do not grapple with Damian Maia. I will continue to bet Damian Maia until Father Time catches him, or unless he is fighting a top 3 or 4 or 5 guy, and I don't know that Ben Askren is that anymore. I thought he was when he came over to the UFC, but I don't know that he is anymore. Great casher on Damian Maia. The line was way too wide, and I love that man. He's been a steady money machine. Unfortunately, we end up going negative on the last weekend overall because Rory McDonald did not get it done. Douglas Lima looked the best he has ever looked. Holy cow. That guy is incredibly impressive, and really a big part of the thing was Rory McDonald needed to get the takedowns, and he wasn't able to do that. That was another play that I tweeted out for everybody. So those of you on the podcast, you had a short winning night if you didn't follow me on Twitter with my late tweeted plays there. But it wasn't, it's not so bad. It's really not bad. If you're losing less than a unit on a night, that's a pretty dang good night, especially because not many dogs came through. We liked a lot of dogs, and almost none of them came through. In fact, I think we hit one of the 2 underdogs that actually came through on the card. It was a favorites kind of night. But that's enough. I don't want to keep rambling about this stuff because we got to get into UFC 244. Let's go! So something that everybody needs to know is I put out a Twitter poll a little earlier in the week, and I think I'm going to do something a little bit nuts for this card. So this is the card of the year, and like I said, it's absolutely stacked. These are bet on fighters against bet on fighters, and basically, if you cut this card into pieces and spread it out amongst the other cards the rest of the year, I would have bet on every single one of these matches. And I put out a tweet, and I wanted to know, for the sake of entertainment, for the sake of the podcast, do you all want me to bet on every single card this week? Well, we had a resounding 82% yes. So it's about to get nuts. Now, you all know I am not a professional sports bettor. I am some dude who likes MMA and is a degenerate gambler and knows a thing or two about betting and fighting. But I'm not a professional. This is not something that you do. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want to put like 50 or $100 on each fight and then bet $5 if you want to bet like 50 or $100 on each of your real selections and then put $5 or $10 on each fight so you've got a little bit of a sweat or something, that's something that I do enjoy doing, and I do basically every single fight because it makes each of the little fights I don't care quite so much about interesting. But it's not a plus EV move. You're not going to do that over time and be able to show a profit. So me picking a card like this where there's so many good fights, this is a one-time thing. I mean, maybe we'll do it again if there's another big, giant, stacked card like this, but this is really just for fun. So sit back and enjoy. Let's hope I don't train wreck the Die Hard MMA podcast betting record with this stunt move that I'm pulling here. The first fight of the night kicks us off with an absolute banger. We are in the featherweight division where Julio Arce, who is 16-3, is taking on mean Hakeem Dawodu, who is 10-1. Now there are 2 fights, 2 picks that I have already tweeted out, and one of those was mean Hakeem Dawodu. We got him at minus 138. And just wow, talk about starting off a fight night right. Julio Arce was the 2011 Golden Glove boxing champion. He used his range and head movement really, really well. Now, he did used to compete down at 135, so he's a little bit smaller for the division, but he's very, very intelligent off his back. He attacks with aggressive submissions, and he's got a really good stand-up game. He trains with Lyman Good, who fights later on down the card, and one thing that he does really well is he tries to take people's backs from a standing position, and it's really impressive the way that he does it. He's really sneaky when he gets in there. Really, he's dangerous absolutely everywhere. On the feet, on the mat, you are never safe. Now, in his last fight against Shimon Moraes, I'm sorry, not his last fight, but the fight before that, his last loss, Shimon Moraes knocked him down not once but twice. He can get touched, and heavy hitters seem to have success against him. Now, he did lose that one by split decision. It was a very close fight, and he's beaten guys like Daniel Tamor, Dan Ige. He's got a solid record and put up some good numbers. He is 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. He outputs 4.76 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 2.68 significant strikes per minute. He has an insane 93% takedown defense. Now, luckily, I don't think that's going to come into play in this fight because Hakeem ain't taking anybody down. Hakeem is an amateur Muay Thai and kickboxing fighter who had a 42-5 record before getting into MMA. 15 of those wins came by KO. Now, that was his amateur record. He's 12-0 as a professional with 9 KOs. He's got incredible hand speed. He uses heavy kicks, both to the body and the leg. He mixes it up very well. He keeps his hands up high. He's difficult to hit. He's got a great chin, and he doesn't wear damage at all. When he trades with people and they land, you just can't tell. Some people swell up real quick and get all puffy where they bleed. He's not a bleeder. He doesn't swell. He's made out of granite. He works the body too, and that's one of my favorite things. He uses knees, punches, and kicks all to chop his opponents down, and I just love the way this guy fights. Now, he's 5'8". He's got a 73-inch reach advantage, so he's going to have he's got a 73-inch reach. He has a 3-inch reach advantage. He outputs 5.83 significant strikes per minute, which is almost it's over a full strike per minute significant than his opponent here. And he's got 2.37 significant strikes absorbed per minute. So he outputs more significant strikes, and he receives less significant strikes than his opponent Julio Arce in this spot. I am all kinds of high on Hakeem Dawodu, and I think he is absolutely deserving of this line. It's gonna be a hell of a fight. It's a short line. He's a short favorite, but I think he's just a little bit better everywhere. Julio Arce may have a better ground game, but I don't think it's going to get there. Hakeem Dawodu's got an 88% takedown defense rate. Neither of these guys want to put this thing on the mat. And if Julio Arce decides to change his mind and does try to put it on the mat, I don't think he's going to get there. Julio may end up on his back if he gets cracked by Hakeem, in which case Hakeem will probably land some ground and pound and then stand him back up. This is going to be a striking match. This is the way to start this card off. This is going to be fun, and I am planning on cashing that first bet. Now, the second fight of the night. You know what? I'm just not going to say these fights are good because I will say it for legitimately every single fight on the card if I keep doing that. We're going to the welterweight division where Lyman Good takes on Chance Rencountre. And I just talked about Julio Arce and how he's a training partner of Lyman Good. Here we go. These guys are fighting back to back. And normally speaking, I love when that happens. I absolutely love when training partners train, fight, and peak all at the same time. But I'm fading both of them here. We've got Chance Rencountre. I tweeted out this play at plus 105 a little earlier in the week. I am honestly surprised that the line has held where it's at because I expected this line to flip. That's the reason I jumped on it so hard. And it's still sitting there. You can still get plus 105. You can get plus 110 at Pinnacle. I don't know who, how, or why people are betting Lyman Good. Don't get me wrong. He's good. I like Lyman Good. He's a brick shit house. The dude is built like a freaking Adonis, but he's 34 years old. He's getting old. He's 20-5, and he got absolutely handled by Damian Maia in his last fight. His most recent win came over Ben Saunders by TKO. He lost a split decision to Elizo Zaleski dos Santos, which, don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing to lose a split to Zaleski dos Santos, but then his fight before that was a KO over Andrew Craig. So he's 2-2 in the UFC. His 2 wins were by KO over bottom feeders, and then his 2 losses were to real fighters. Now, Chance Rencountre on the flip side of this thing is a guy that I am just so high on. He's 14-3, and I don't see how he's the underdog here. He absolutely destroyed Ismail Nardiev, Kyle Stewart, and then he lost a decision to Bilal Muhammad in his UFC debut. He came out of nowhere after losing to Bilal Muhammad to wreck Kyle Stewart, and taking out a guy like Ismail Nardiev is no joke. Nardiev is 13-3. And we saw in his last fight against Sayer Baharzada just how damn good that guy is. I think that Lyman Good has a serious hole in his game when it comes to the grappling, and that's something that Damian Maia was able to exploit. That's something that we were on in that fight, and I think we had Damian Maia by sub actually on that prop, and that cashed in round 1. Now, Chance Rencountre is not Damian Maia. Let's be very, very clear about that. But he's going to exploit the same exact hole. Chance Rencountre has got a serious submission game. He's only got 3 wins by submission, but his wrestling prowess is a big, big deal. He hits hard. He attacks with submissions. He's very creative. He's explosive. He's going to be the bigger, taller, longer fighter here as well. He's basically got all the advantages, including the youth. I'm all over Chance Rencountre in this spot. It's another spot where it's a close line, but I think Rencountre wins. So getting dog value or even money, let's go. Our next fight is in the women's flyweight division where Katlyn Chookagian takes on Jennifer Maia. Chookagian is 12-2. She's 30 years old, and she is a serious problem in this division. She's taking on Jennifer Maia, who is 17-5, 31 years old, and we handicapped the crap out of her when she took on Roxanne Modafferi, and that was my all-star 2-unit bet, fading one of my favorite fighters in the world because she just matched up so perfectly against poor Roxy. Katlyn Chookagian is tall, long, and rangy, and she knows how to use it. I've talked about that before. Not everybody that has those physical advantages actually knows how to use it. She's got great footwork. She's got good straight punches. She fires knees up the middle, and she's very, very aggressive. She's got a great ability to get back to her feet once she gets taken down. She's essentially a point striker. She's got real good balance, real good hips. She's difficult to get on the mat, and then once you get her there, there's no guarantee you're going to keep her there. She uses the cage really well and really intelligently to defend the takedown as well. Now, in her last fight, she showed a fresh new ability to kind of sit down on her punches more against JoJo Calderwood. I really thought we were going to cash with JoJo fading against Katlyn Chookagian there, but it didn't quite pan out that way. And Chookagian showed that she's got a bit more pop to her punches these days. She's 5'9", she's got a 68-inch reach, and she averages 4.28 significant strikes per minute with a 32% accuracy. She's got a very, very high output, and she kios with every single punch, which those of you who don't know is so she makes a noise and she grunts and squeals every single time she throws a punch, which I actually think affects the judges. She fights at the end of her range very well, so I think even if she doesn't actually hit her opponents, it looks like she does. And when she's being the more aggressive, the louder fighter, those things add up. Now, even though she averages 4.28 significant strikes per minute with that crazy output, she averages 4.68 significant strikes absorbed. This girl is 12-2 and gets outstruck by her opponents. She has a 56% takedown defense. So like I said before, she is solid, but she can be taken down. It's the issue that you can't keep her there. Jennifer Maia on the flip side of this thing is 17-5-1. And she is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Now, she's a very strong wrestler. She's got a great base. She's got really thick legs. She's got a good clinch. She has good dirty boxing. And for the women's division, she's got really heavy hands. She showed that off when she hurt Roxanne Modafferi and Alexis Davis. She's got really crisp boxing, and I actually think that she's improving. She punches well in combos, and that's something that I think is very, very important, as opposed to just the 1-2, looking for that one big shot. She doesn't do that. She combos it up damn near every time. Now, she's 5'4" with a 64-inch reach. So she's going to be outreached by a good 4 inches, which is kind of a problem. She averages 4.11 significant strikes per minute, and she absorbs 3.42 significant strikes absorbed. So she is outlanding her opponents. Now, she's only been in the UFC for 3 fights, and that was Liz Carmouche, Alexis Davis, and Roxanne Modafferi. So it's a much smaller sample size than Katlyn Chookagian, who's been in the UFC since 2016 and has over twice as many fights against other opponents like JoJo Calderwood, Jessica Ai. I mean, they have common opponents in Alexis Davis and Liz Carmouche, which, funnily enough, they both lost to Liz and they both beat Alexis Davis. I think that this fight is going to come down to the grappling because Jennifer Maia has the opportunity to beat Katlyn Chookagian if she can mix in takedowns. Like I said, her heavy shots I think are going to land more and score more than Katlyn Chookagian's little pitter-patter shots. It's going to be a matter of controlling the range, closing the distance, and then using that to her advantage. Jennifer Maia did a great job of that against Roxanne Modafferi, but Modafferi is not a big threat when it comes to the boxing, so we had no worries about her standing toe-to-toe with Roxy and being able to outstrike Roxy. She's not going to be able to stand toe-to-toe and outstrike Chookagian. Now, if she closes the distance and she lands some bombs on Chookagian and roughs her up as she goes, that's not necessarily a bad strategy. That's something that she could absolutely mix in here. I don't know that she's actually going to get it done, though. I mean, like I said, Chookagian does this thing time and time and time again, and she just absolutely wins every single damn time. She has absolutely no finishing ability, though. This is one of those spots where I have to go with the fighter that's just absolutely streaking right now. 12-2. She knows what the judges like. She knows how to give it to them, especially when she's got the height and reach and range advantage. I don't think that Jennifer's going to be able to do enough. She will steal rounds. She will pitter-patter her way to another decision. And I will take the prop. Katlyn Chookagian wins by 3-round decision. That's sitting at minus 110 right now. I don't think that she can finish Jennifer Maia. If Jennifer Maia gets on top of her, she absolutely could hold her on the ground and pound her out. But even Liz Carmouche was not able to do that to her. And Liz Carmouche is really my measuring stick when it comes to this women's division because she's the best wrestler and probably the physically strongest wrestler out there. So if you can keep her off of you, nobody else is going to get on top of you in a worse way. So as much as I hate to say it, I would love to take the underdog shot with Jennifer Maia, but the line is just not wide enough. Katlyn Chookagian's about minus 155, minus 160 right now, and Jennifer Maia is plus 135. It's just not juicy enough to take that underdog shot. What I think we'll do is take minus 110. Katlyn Chookagian wins by a 3-round decision. Next fight, we are moving on up to the big boys, where Andrei the Pitbull Arlovski takes on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And this is another hell of a fight. This is great matchmaking. Andrei Arlovski, he's 40 years old, man. He's finally hit that age that I tell everybody we try not to bet on fighters at unless we've got a really, really good reason. Now, Andrei Arlovski has had a very suspicious record lately. So he is 1-3-1 in his last 5, but those have all been very, very closely contested decisions. So even though Andrei Arlovski was on a big losing streak before he snapped it against Big Ben Rothwell, he's been having a very, very good showing of himself this late in his career. He works very well behind his jab. He has extremely high fight IQ. He's a very, very savvy veteran. He controls space. He recovers well when he gets hurt, and he fights well at range. He's mostly a boxer, but he does mix in leg kicks. He does go high kick every once in a while, and he's got really excellent clinch work. Now, he is 6'3", and he's got a 77-inch reach. He averages 3.54 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs 2.68 significant strikes per minute. And that's spanning over a UFC career that goes all the way back until 2014. His numbers are phenomenal. Even at this age, you would think that he would be dipping off, but he still is averaging absolutely fantastic numbers. Now, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, the biggest thing that we know about this guy is his power. Dude is 8-0 with 7 wins by KO. This will only be his third UFC fight. He stepped in against Junior Baby Albini, and the biggest thing I took away from that fight is that he got taken down relatively easily, and that's a problem. He needs to shore up that takedown defense. He needs to shore up that wrestling, or somebody is going to make him pay for it. But he managed to get back up every single time just by being physically strong and athletic, pushed Albini off of him, and then landed the knockout in round 2. He fought Alan Crowder, who we all know that Alan Crowder is a bum, but damn, dude, he got it done in 9 seconds in round 1. That wasn't even a fight. This guy's got the death touch. I know Albini and Crowder don't belong in the UFC. Don't get me wrong. I know they're both bums. I know they're both cut. It's not something that I'm putting a whole lot of stock into. But the way he did it, Jairzinho's got insane power. And even though he's only got an 8-0 UFC record, he's actually an incredibly decorated kickboxer before he transitioned over to MMA. He's got heavy hands. He is a 9-time kickboxing champion, and he had a 7-6 record with 64 wins by KO. This dude is no joke. Now, he's 6'4", he's got a 78-inch reach, and averages 3.8 significant strikes per minute over those 2 UFC fights. It's a very small sample size. Now, he did get hit 2.98 significant strikes absorbed per minute, and he's got a 66% takedown defense rating so far. Again, incredibly small sample size. Now, if Andrei Arlovski can come out here and decides, you know what, I'm going to grapple this guy, he might be able to win simply because that's a hole that Jairzinho may have in his game that hasn't been patched yet. But Andrei has showed absolutely no willingness to grapple in his last 7-8 fights. He just doesn't do it. He wants to stand and bang. He wants to box. And he does well in the clinch, but as long as this fight is standing, Jairzinho is going to get the knockout. Like, that's really the only way I see this fight going. Jairzinho is incredibly skilled on the feet, and as much as Andrei Arlovski is a savvy old veteran, he's going to get caught by Father Time at some point, and I think that time might be now, because Big Boy is only 31 years old, and like I said, he'll be patching up that wrestling, and even if he doesn't patch that up, he's just so damn strong. He's one of those guys that has no problem getting back to his feet. I think that we're going to have to take Rozenstruik here. As much as I would love to take a sharp spot and go, you know what, Andrei Arlovski is going to take him down and put him on his back and grind him out, I can't guarantee he's going to do that. I don't know that that's anywhere in Andrei Arlovski's tool bag at this point because I just haven't seen it in his last couple of fights. Another thing to keep in mind is that Andrei Arlovski is a training partner of Jorge Masvidal, who is in the main event. And so the coaching staff over there, as much as they would all come on this show and call me a liar and tell me they give equal opportunity and time to everybody in the room and all of their professional fighters, everybody's efforts are going to Jorge Masvidal. And that dude is not working the clinch and takedown game. I might sound stupid if he comes out and that's exactly what he does, but I highly doubt that is the plan for Jorge Masvidal to come out and take down Nate Diaz. So if that's not something the team as a whole is drilling, I think they're working on their striking, and I'll bet you Andrei Arlovski is sucked up into that. I just don't think that he gets it done here. As much as I hate to say it, I see the hole in the game wide and clear, and again, I just don't think the line is wide enough for me to take it. Andrei Arlovski is 40 years old, and prior to beating a broken Big Bryn Rothwell, he dropped the ball to Augusto Sagai. He dropped the ball to a streaking and young Walt Harris. He lost to Shamil Abdurakhimov. He lost to Tai Tuivasa. All of these next-generation fighters, he is losing to. The fights are close, but they're split decisions, and he drops the ball on all of them. I gotta roll with Jairzinho here. As much as, again, I'm beating my head into the desk here because I have to make an official bet on every single damn play. Gotta go with it. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, -150. Let's do it. Now, those fights were the early preliminary fights. This takes us to the actual preliminary card. We've got a middleweight tilt between Brad Tavares, who is 17-5, taking on the undefeated Edmen Shahbazyan. And I cannot say enough good things about Edmen Shahbazyan. This kid is something else. But keep in mind, this is clear in a way the biggest step up in competition we've seen from a young fighter in a long time. Brad Tavares is no joke. This dude is insanely physical, very strong. He's got excellent takedown defense, and even though he's mostly considered to be a point fighter because he really doesn't have that one-punch knockout power. He did put Krzysztof Jotko away in April of 2018, but that kind of shocked the world. Really, nobody expected that to happen. He's got a 74-inch reach. He's 6'1", and he actually averages 3.02 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 2.73. Those stats include getting outstruck to Israel Adesanya 40-119. So even after that one-sided beatdown over the course of his UFC career, he is still out-averaged his opponents. So he has a very high output. He circles really well. He flows. He's that kind of guy that when he gets into a groove, you can just kind of feel it, and he absolutely puts it on his opponents when he does. His stand-up game is very, very well-rounded. Edmen Shahbazyan on the other side of this thing is 10-0. He is 21 years old and full of piss and vinegar. And like I said, this is a massive, massive step up in competition. He won his UFC debut against Darren Stewart via split decision, which to me, considering what we've seen from Darren the Dentist Stewart recently, that speaks volumes. That was only 3 fights ago for Darren Stewart. And I know, like I said in his last fight breakdown when we took him against Darren Win, he's improved massively. But making your UFC debut against that guy and then handling him, going to a decision with him, that's impressive. They eased up on him a little bit. They gave him Charles Byrd, and he TKO'd Charles Byrd in 38 seconds. Then he choked out Jack Marshman in a minute. So after coming into a very, very high, stiff level of competition, he's got some good management because they went, whoa, 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 whoa. So they're giving the kid a little bit of time to develop, but now they are pushing him off the cliff. But I'm still excited about this kid. He's 6'2". He's got a 74-inch reach, so he's going to match the reach of Brad Tavares. He averages 3.89 significant strikes per minute, and he only absorbs 2.29 significant strikes per minute. Now, that's mostly just the Darren Stewart fight. Let's be clear about that. The other 2 fights were over so quickly, they're not really going to affect those stats all that well. So even though he's got a 3-fight sample size, that's mostly the one 15-minute fight. Granted, it's over a very good opponent with some very dangerous strikes, but it's still just one opponent. What he did do, however, is land 7.71 takedowns per 15 minutes, and that's an insane level of takedowns. He's got a 40% takedown accuracy rate, so he is just constant pressure. He comes forward, he uses his hands, he takedowns, he transitions well, he passes the guard, and his ground and pound is something else. That's the big question here. Can he get Brad Tavares down? Now, Tavares has fought guys like Nate Marquardt, Elias Theodorou, Talis Ladies, and like I said, Christoph Jocko, Yoel Romero, Tim Boach. I mean, he's been around forever, and he's taken on some very, very big names. He is a very difficult fighter to step in front of. That being said, I cannot look away from Edmen Shahbazyan. One of my favorite things in the world is to fade fighters who are stepping up in competition, but I really, truly believe that Edmen Shahbazyan is simply something special. 8 of his 10 wins have come by KO, TKO. I don't know that he can put Brad Tavares out, but I do think that he can essentially put his game to work. He can take Brad Tavares down, what he did to Darren Stewart, essentially 2.0, and do it again against Brad Tavares. He's not going to have to worry about the heavy hands coming back at him. Brad is a very, not accomplished, but a very capable striker, but I don't think he's got the type of power that it's going to take to put a young guy like Edmen Shahbazyan away. I just don't see... Brad Tavares by decision is the way that you can take this thing, but I think Edmen Shahbazyan has more tools to finish this fight. He can win it by submission. He can win it by knockout. He also can win this thing by decision, utilizing the takedowns, utilizing forward pressure. I think we got to go with Edmen Shahbazyan in this fight. Luckily, we can still snag a -120, so that's what we're going to roll with. Edmen Shahbazyan, -120. Next up, we've got featherweights, where Shane Burgos, 12-1, takes on Makwan, Mr. Finland Amirkhani, who is 15-3. Let me just start by saying I hate Makwan Amirkhani. He just seems like such a cocky asshole. Like Shane Burgos, he uses really, really good head movement. He's got these really sneaky hooks and uppercuts that he likes to use, and he's got heavy, heavy hands. He uses leg kicks so well, and I know that's something that I talk about in damn near every podcast. When somebody uses leg kicks and they put them to good, effective use, it's like my favorite thing in MMA. I absolutely love it, and Shane Burgos is masterful. He ties them in really well to his overall striking game. He's 5'11", he's got a 75-inch reach, he's thick as hell, and he outputs 7.06 significant strikes per minute. The dude just has output. Now, he absorbs 6.14 significant strikes per minute, so even though he's got this crazy high-level pace, he does let his opponents hit him back. But that's also because he's gone up against opposition like Calvin Kattar, Kurt Hollabaugh, Cub Swanson. All these guys have massive output themselves. So it's not like he's not fighting fighters who will help that stat. He's distinguishing himself from his opponents in a positive way against fighters who also fight at a high pace. So it's a good thing, even though I don't like him getting hit as much as he does. He has a 94% takedown defense, and that is very key here in this fight. Makwan Amirkhani has a tendency to start very, very slow. One thing that I noticed about him is that he's actually really hittable. He keeps his hands down low, almost like he's got kind of a karate style stance. He just doesn't really know what to do with it. Now, he's a super slick jiu-jitsu artist. He's got a very strong submission attack, but just before his last fight against Chris Fishgold, he took about a year off to work on his boxing game, which I do think it's smart from the aspect that he needs to be a well-rounded mixed martial artist, but it seems like he was really focusing on one of his weaknesses for a full year and almost got away from his strength for a little bit. Now, he ended up showing Fishgold what was what in the submission game in that fight, which, again, I was on Fishgold. I don't like Amirkhani. I thought Fishgold was going to get it done. But that fight was so telling. The only reason that Fishgold lost that fight is because he engaged in the grappling. Chris is real well-rounded himself, so I thought he was going to be able to hold his own on the mat. That proved not to be true. As soon as it hit the mat, he lost his submission attack. Makwan Amirkhani reversed the position, got him in a submission attempt, and it was over. That's just, you do not want to go to the ground with Makwan Amirkhani. As much as I don't like the dude as a person, I cannot doubt the skills that this kid brings to the table. So he's very, very dangerous on the mat. But while he's on the feet, he doesn't have much to answer with. Chris Fishgold was absolutely boxing him up. And Shane Burgos would murder Chris Fishgold. Now, Makwan Amirkhani is 5'10", and he has a 72-inch reach, so he's going to be at a relatively drastic reach disadvantage in that fight, and I think it's going to make a big difference. I mean, I guess drastic is a little bit of a strong word. It's only 3 inches, but Shane Burgos knows how to use that 3 inches. He averages 1.62 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs 1.62 significant strikes per minute. That might be the first time on the podcast that somebody had the exact same output and absorbed ratio. But basically, he's fighting even with his opponents. He hits them every time they hit him. That's not a game you want to play with Shane Burgos. He averages 3.47 takedowns per 15 minutes. So just over a takedown per round at a 48% accuracy. So that's actually a very high accuracy, and that's a lot of takedowns. And normally speaking, when he gets the takedowns, his opponents just don't get back up. That's why he doesn't have the crazy chain wrestling type of stats there where you would expect more takedowns per 15 minutes. I don't think that's going to be an issue here, though, because like I said, Shane Burgos has an astounding 94% takedown defense. Kid is solid everywhere. I'm super high on Hurricane Shane, and I think he's I don't want to say easy pick, because as we know, these are cage fights. Never underestimate humans when you lock yourself inside of a steel cage with them, but I think he gets it done. He's sitting at about minus 233 right now over at Pinnacle is where we can get him, and I think that he is parlayable. I think he's the type of guy that if you're looking on this card for a couple favorites to string together, or even, I mean, really, he's the only decent-sized favorite on the card at this point in time. But if you've got another like mid-level minus 160, minus 170 type of fighter, Shane would be the guy that I would pair them up with. Now, the thing that I am very tempted to do is go on Shane Burgos inside the distance. He is plus 325 inside the distance, and I know Makwan Amirkhani is a tough guy himself. The way he was getting hit by Chris Fishgold, I gotta wonder if Shane can't put this guy away. I mean, he's got 4 KOs, he's got 5 submissions, he's very well-rounded. One of the guys he KO'd was Charles Rosa, Boston Strong, and we just saw him come back huge against Manny Bermudez. I know that was a couple of years ago, but Shane's only gotten better since then. I will more than likely be sprinkling that line, but because of the way we're doing this podcast, I can't really afford to go nuts. I'm gonna put a bet on every single fight, so I think we're gonna take Shane, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna hang on to him. We're gonna parlay Shane Burgos, so put a pin in that. Our next fight is the prelims main event, and like I said, this could absolutely be the main event of any other card. It could be a fight night, it could be a pay-per-view. I don't even care. I would be all about it. We have got Corey Overtime Anderson taking on Johnny Walker from Brazil. He's back. He is back, ladies and gentlemen. Johnny Walker, the hottest prospect at 205, is back in the cage. He has recovered from his shoulder injury, and I am so excited. He is my highest prospect. I love this guy. He's hilarious. He's fun to watch, and he's got an exciting fan-friendly style. I also think he's the future of the division. Corey Overtime Anderson has a wrestling main offense. That's what he does. He's a cardio machine, and he just grapples and grapples and grapples. This is a striker versus grappler matchup. Now, Corey has shown better striking lately in his fight against Glover Teixeira. He stood toe-to-toe with him for a decent amount, but that's also because Glover's got such a sweet wrestling and submission game himself. He had to watch his P's and Q's. He has a better strength and conditioning program. He stepped his level up there as well. He does cut good angles. He's got good footwork, and he's got a really sneaky uppercut. However, he doesn't handle leg kicks well or at all. They are a problem for Corey Anderson. He doesn't react well to getting hit either. That's something that you can tell immediately. When he gets hit, he does not like it. He backs straight up and he becomes a very, very easy target. He's 6'3". He's got a 79-inch reach. He averages 4.37 significant strikes per minute, and he gets hit 2.2 significant strikes per minute is what he absorbs. Jeez, I blew that. Sorry about that, guys. He averages 4.96 takedowns every 15 minutes, and he has a 50% takedown accuracy. That's a very, very high takedown accuracy, especially when you're talking about a guy who's in the 205-pound division. He fought people like Ovince St. Preux, Pat Cummins, Glover Teixeira. That's a very high takedown accuracy rating for those kinds of opponents. Now, he's the perfect guy to fight someone like Patrick Cummins, and he showed out against Patrick Cummins. He out-wrestled Pat all day, and that's because he is a bigger, stronger athlete, and he did well against Glover Teixeira as well. Like I said, he wanted to work on his boxing, but he got hurt a couple times in that fight. Ilir Latifi rocked him in his last fight, and he was calling out John Jones, and let's face it, he is nowhere near the level of John Jones, and they would not give that to him. In fact, I feel like the UFC is punishing here by putting Johnny Walker in front of him. He's insanely athletic. He is so explosive, it's not even funny. He's a very creative striker. He's got killer instinct like nothing else. I think maybe the only other guy who's got killer instinct more than him on this card is going to be in the co-main event. He is coming off that shoulder surgery. However, I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. Let's face it, he uses his kicks a lot. He throws knees, he explodes, those flying knees that he hits people with. He uses his legs a whole lot. So even if he has trouble with one single shoulder, it's not going to be that big of an issue for him in this particular fight. Maybe when it comes to defending takedowns, if he has to fish for underhooks or pull Corey up, then it could be kind of a problem, but I don't know. I think Johnny's a freak athlete. He's the kind of guy who I don't see having a problem with this recovery. He does throw lots of feints. He sets his opponents up, and he is 6'5" with an 82-inch reach. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. He outputs 5.73 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs 3.26 significant strikes per minute. He is going to keep Corey Anderson on the outside, and when Corey comes in for a takedown, I am betting on a flying knee knockout. I think Johnny Walker crushes Corey's chin with a knee when he tries to get this fight to the mat. I don't think Corey is physical, strong, or athletic enough to hold a guy like Johnny Walker up against the fence for long periods. I don't think he's going to be able to repeatedly take him down either. I think this is going to be Johnny Walker is going to clip him in the first round with a shot, and Corey's going to go, oh, fuck. And then it's going to be over. Corey, like I said, does not react well to getting hit, and he's been able to panic wrestle against all of his opponents up until this point in time. But he's not going to be able to panic wrestle against a guy like Johnny Walker, especially with his long range. I think Johnny will be able to just kind of stiff arm him and keep him away while he continues to land punishment, which I think Corey will collapse under, and the ref will pull him off. Those are the two circumstances I see. Neither of them have Corey Anderson winning. We're going to close that parlay out with Shane Burgos with Johnny Walker. Shane Burgos at minus 233 and Johnny Walker at minus 170 is going to give you a payout of plus 128. And I love that. We're getting a plus juicy dog line on two guys I really think are just going to get their fights done. Let's roll. All right, all right, all right. That takes us to the main card, and what a main card it is. If there was ever a pay-per-view worth your $60, this is the one. We kick off the night with a lightweight fight between Kevin Lee and Gregor Gillespie. Whoa, talk about matchmaking. This is some excellent matchmaking right here. Kevin, the Motown Phenom Lee, is 17-5, and he is making his return to the lightweight division after having a brief stint at 170 pounds. Gregor the Gift Gillespie is 13-0, undefeated, and looking to crack himself up into the top 10. Kevin Lee is absolutely a physical specimen. He is athletic. He's got all the physical gifts you could ever ask for in a fighter. He throws heavy kicks, and he throws heavy hands. He's fast. He's explosive. One of the things I noticed in his last fight against Rafael Dos Anjos at 170, who is a former 155-pound champion, he dropped him in the very first minute. Now, it's no secret that Kevin Lee is a front runner. He's the kind of guy who he has problems later on in the fight. Let's just put it like that. Everyone knows this. He showed very improved striking in his last couple of fights, though. He's got better footwork. He is constantly improving, and he just moved out to TriStar, so he's getting work with the kind of coaches that are perfect for the style of fighter that he is, which wrestler first, jiu-jitsu ace second, and then striker third. He's just getting better, and he's got the right people around him, in my opinion. One thing that he does well, in my opinion, is he goes to the head kick when people aren't expecting it, and I think he's going to get more and more dangerous with that weapon. He's 5'9". He's got a 77-inch reach. He has 3.84 significant strikes landed per minute, and he absorbs 3.18 significant strikes per minute. So he is outlanding his opponents. Even in the rough little bit of a run here that he's had, he is still outlanding the majority of his UFC opponents. He averages 3.27 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 42% takedown accuracy, and he has a relatively high 73% takedown defense. Now, one thing I want to point out real quick before we move on is look at his last 4 fights. Tony Ferguson, Edson Barbosa, Ragin Al Iaquinta, and Rafael Dos Anjos. 3 of his last 4 fights were 25-minute main event fights. 2 of them went the full 5-round distance. Edson Barbosa got finished in the 5th round, so I guess it didn't go the full 5-round distance, but he did go to a decision with Al Iaquinta. That's impressive for a guy that supposedly has cardio issues. The fact that he has had 3 5-rounders in his last 3 fights. Now, he TKO'd Edson Barbosa in the 5th. The doctor came in and stopped that one. Al Iaquinta was just kind of the perfect countermatch to Kevin Lee at 155. The same as Rafael Dos Anjos is the perfect countermatch to him at 170. Those were 2 really bad matchups for Kevin Lee. And Tony Ferguson is Tony freaking Ferguson. So what are you going to say about that? Kevin Lee had staph infection, and honestly, he came out and he put a beating on Tony in the first round before he gassed out. And I think a lot of that particular gas out had to do with the fact that he knew he needed to get it done and early because of the staph infection. So I have a little asterisk personally next to that one myself. Now, Kevin Lee has 8 submissions of his 17 wins. That's something that is absolutely phenomenal. He submits dang near everybody. He's got 2 KOs, so even though his hands are improving, his power's improving, he doesn't knock a whole lot of people out. Gregor Gillespie on the other side of this thing has 6 KOs out of his 13 wins and 5 submissions, so he is a finisher himself. Now, he's 5'7", he's got a 71-inch reach, he averages 3.6 significant strikes per minute, and he only absorbs 1.81 significant strikes per minute. Granted, he has a much shorter stint in the UFC, less fights than Kevin Lee does, but I mean, he doesn't have a short sample size. He's got 6 fights. That's a good number of fights. However, most of them ended pretty early. He's finished the majority of his opponents until this point in time. Now, this is where he differs, is he averages 7.44 takedowns per 15 minutes. He is much more of a chain grappler. He is all offense, all pressure, all the time. He has a 48% accuracy on his takedowns. So looking at these numbers, they're very evenly matched. I mean, Kevin Lee has a slightly higher output, and Gregor Gillespie absorbs slightly less. Gregor lands slightly more takedowns, and Kevin Lee has got a height and reach advantage. I mean, this is a super close fight. and I'm very much looking forward to it. I think this is excellent, excellent matchmaking. The point to me, the biggest issue to me, is the difference in competition. Kevin Lee has fought Tony Ferguson, who has a claim to that 155-pound belt. He should be the next match for Khabib, and he was the 155 interim champion. Edson Barbosa, who is a scary, scary striker and a longtime contender at 155. Al Iaquinta, who is the number one contender for a while there, and he put Khabib to the toughest test that we've seen him given for a long time simply because of matchmaking. And RDA, who's a problem at 170 for everybody but the top three, and who was maybe one of the most dangerous 155-pound champions we have ever seen. He's got championship-level experience in his last 4 fights. And Gregor Gillespie, even though he's 13-0, his best win is Yancy Medeiros. Before that, he won against Vince Pichel, Jordan Rinaldi, Jason Gonzalez. I mean, these guys aren't anything to write home about, in my opinion. If you're good, I mean, don't get me wrong. Gregor Gillespie is a monster, all right? Vince Pichel is 12-2, so he's a phenomenal fighter himself. I'm not trying to downplay that. Jordan Rinaldi is 14-7, though, and then you've got Jason Gonzalez, who's on a 2-fight losing streak after dropping one to Jim Miller, and is 11-5. I mean, the difference in competition is just night and day. You cannot work your way around that. And I think this is a perfect buy low spot on an incredible talent like Kevin Lee. He is only 27 years old. Gillespie is 32, and Kevin Lee isn't even in his physical prime yet. And it's not like he's taken a whole bunch of egregious damage. Now, granted, he got lumped up by Al Iaquinta, and he did get diced up by Tony Ferguson. But he handled Edson Barbosa, and he traded shots with RDA and got choked out. His problem is round 4 and round 5. That's what I've really come to understand about Kevin Lee, is that he gasses out, but he gasses out in the championship rounds. This is going to be the first time in a long time that the spotlight isn't on him. He is the first fight on the preliminary card, not the last one. He's not the main event. He doesn't have to prepare for 25 minutes. All he's got to do is be able to beat Gregor Gillespie for 15 minutes, and that's a much easier task than going with a champion caliber fighter for 25. Gregor Gillespie is a chain wrestler, and he sells out for the grappling, man. He's got some heavy hands. Don't get me wrong. The dude's explosive. He can punch, but we almost never see his stand-up game because all he does is grind for that takedown. He's got hellish ground and pound once it gets there. He transitions to the back very, very well. He is really slick getting to his opponent's back. But again, we're dealing with guys nowhere near the level of grapplers as Kevin Lee, who haven't fought the level of grapplers that Kevin Lee has. It's just a different world. The way he got Yancy Medeiros in a body lock and then ragdolled him and threw him around and took his back and put hooks in at will, you're not going to do that to Kevin Lee. I've got to wonder if Gregor's going to have a hard time taking Kevin Lee down. And if he has a hard time taking Kevin Lee down, this is most likely going to be a striking match, and I think Kevin Lee is the more accomplished striker. If he does get Kevin Lee down, I don't think he can hold him there, and I definitely don't think Gillespie can submit him. If he can hurt him and rock him and put him down, now we're talking. But Kevin Lee also has some wicked recovery. Edson Barbosa hit him with a head kick from hell and wobbled the crap out of him. Find that gif on Twitter, because it's hilarious. He came back and ended up winning that fight by doctor stoppage because he put it on Barbosa so badly after that point. Dude can recover. Kevin Lee has got it all. Kevin Lee still has a future at the top of the division. He just needed to settle in, and I think he's probably found his home at TriStar. I expect big things from him, and this is a spot where the UFC has a win-win on their hands. They're either feeding Kevin Lee to Gregor Gillespie to give him that next step up, or this is a perfect bounce-back spot where Kevin Lee goes, look, I just wrecked your 13-0 boy. Put me back where I belong on the pedestal. I think Kevin Lee bounces back, and we're getting plus 140 on him to do that. I'm going to take that shot. I'm rolling with Kevin Lee at plus 140. The next fight is back up in the heavyweight division where Derrick the Black Beast Lewis takes on Blagoy Baga Ivanov. And this is a fun fight at heavyweight. Welcome back, hot balls. I miss Derrick Lewis. He's been out with an injury. He's coming off of an ACL surgery, which is a little bit of a concern, but honestly, I think the break was good for him. He had a really, really big 2018, and then he had a problem with JDS in 2019. It's good that he got a little bit of a break, and I'm expecting him to come back, and I hope he comes back stronger than ever because I'm a huge fan of this guy. Now, one thing to note about Derrick Lewis is that he relies on his power and his durability. That's basically his whole game. Dude is a physical monster. When he gets taken down by his opponents, he stands up with them on top of them. He is just physically inhumanly strong. It doesn't matter that he's got a dude that weighs 250 pounds on top of him. He just gets right on up if he wants to. So getting taken down isn't much of a problem for him. He throws with the best of them. He has got that death touch massive power. If he hits you, you are in trouble, especially if he's on top of you. If this thing hits the mat and you're on your back, Derrick Lewis unleashes hellish ground and pound. It's unreal. He is 6'3" and has a 79-inch reach. He outputs 2.69 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 2.38. He definitely is the take a shot to give a shot type of fighter. He has the type of style and power that he makes that work. Now he's got a 53% takedown defense, and Blagoy Ivanov is a bit of a wrestler. However, he doesn't really use it, especially not like we're talking about chain wrestlers like Gregor Gillespie or anything like that. He uses the takedown. He clinches up with his opponents. He roughs them up against the cage. Every once in a while, he'll hit a takedown, but he has a hard time holding them down. That's something I noticed, especially like in the Tai Tuivasa fight. He let Tai get back up, and Tai is basically a fish out of water when he hits the mat. He got controlled in the clinch by Tai Tuivasa, which is also concerning. I'm actually not that high on Blagoy Ivanov. He's 18-2, 6 wins by KO, 6 by submission, and 6 by decision. So very well-rounded, very even, but I don't think he's high-level UFC caliber. I just don't. He's actually kind of smaller for the heavyweight division. Derrick Lewis is going to be a much, much bigger man than him. Ivanov is 5'11" with a 73-inch reach, so Lewis is going to have a 6-inch reach advantage, and that is significant. Blagoy averages 3.56 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 4.44 significant strikes per minute. So even though he is 2-1 in the UFC, he's been outstruck by his opponents. The biggest one there was Junior Dos Santos, who outstruck him like 110-40 or something like that. So that's mostly JDS, but he outstruck Big Ben Rothwell over 15 minutes by 2 punches. That was a super close fight, one that I had a bet on Big Ben on, and one that for a long time I thought Big Ben won. I'm not really sure how I feel about that one because that's right on that edge of scoring where I'm not sure if the cage control matters quite so much. And Blagoy, again, he won by like 2 strikes. So I don't know. Yeah, I still don't know how I feel about that one. But he fought very closely with Tai Tuivasa as well. He outstruck him, I think, by 7 or 8 strikes, something like that. Not a whole lot. So he fights relatively even with his opponents. And if you're going to do that with a guy like Derrick Lewis, you're in for a long night. Or better yet, you're in for a short night. I think Derrick Lewis has the perfect bounce back opponent in front of him. Blagoy isn't going to put Derrick Lewis on his back more than likely. I don't see that happening. Blagoy might put him up against the cage. Derrick Lewis doesn't mind that. And I don't think Blagoy is going to be physically big and strong enough to hold a beast like Derrick against the cage. If Derrick wants off the cage, he will get off the cage. He's got 3 rounds to find his shot. And when he does, I think Blagoy is going to crash to the canvas because you just don't stand up to a guy like the Black Beast. And now, Derrick Lewis doesn't win decisions very often because he is so low output. He's kind of KO or bust. But Blagoy's the kind of guy that he could win a decision against. Blagoy does not outstrike his opponents to a high level. He just doesn't. And if Blagoy is going to settle in and fight a slow-paced fight with Derrick Lewis' significant strikes are probably going to be the difference in this one. I really like Derrick Lewis. I don't understand why the line is the way that it is. I think they've got the wrong guy favored, and we can get Derrick Lewis at plus 113 right now. I'm going to roll with the big dog here. I think Derrick Lewis gets a KO because this is just the perfect opponent for his style. Blagoy will stand in front of him. Blagoy may clinch with him, but he isn't going to be able to out-physical Derrick Lewis. He doesn't have the reach advantage that like Volkov did that gave him a problem. He doesn't have the wrestling explosive ability like Daniel Cormier. He doesn't have the fancy footwork like Junior Dos Santos. This is the kind of guy that Derrick Lewis was built to beat. I'm going to rock with my boy Hot Balls at plus 113. Our next fight is at welterweight where Stephen Wonderboy Thompson takes on Vicente Luque. Wonderboy has hit a bit of a rough patch. He is 1-3 in his last 4. After working his way dominantly up to the title, facing Tyron Woodley twice, going to a draw, and then losing a crazy decision after 2 really boring close fights. He just dropped off a cliff, man. He won a 3-round decision over Jorge Masvidal. Then he dropped a decision to Darren Till in 2018. He comes back and he gets KO'd in round 2 by Anthony Showtime Pettis, which we freaking cashed on, baby. That was huge. Wonderboy is one of the nicest guys in MMA. I legitimately want good things for him. He's 36 years old, though. He's starting to get up there in age, and he is facing the young silent assassin. Vicente Luque is a complete animal. He's 27 years old, and he's currently riding a 6-fight win streak, with 4 of those coming by knockout, 1 submission, and then 1 split decision. The dude handles lower level competition. He KO'd Chad Laprise, he KO'd Nico Price, he KO'd Jalen Turner, he KO'd Barberena. Now granted, that was an absolute war. Barberena came to fight against Vicente Luque, and then he went to a split decision with Mike Platinum Perry. Vicente Luque is one of those guys that he's got some holes in his game. He's a slick submission fighter. On the ground, he is something else. But if you're not going to go to the mat with him, then he's got to rely on the KO. Now, he's got some serious pop in his punches. Don't get me wrong. As noted by the KOs that I just rattled off. Those are some big names, and he dropped them. 9 KOs of his 17 wins. He is 5'11". He's got a 75-inch reach, and he averages 5.19 significant strikes per minute. He absorbs 4.72 significant strikes per minute. That's thanks to guys like Mike Perry, Barberena, and Nico Price that really brought the war to him. He barely outstrikes his opponents. And he only averages 0.95 takedowns per 15 minutes. So less than 1 takedown for every 15-minute fight, which is where I'm a little bit disappointed, because I feel like if he mixed in his takedowns more, he could be a lot more viable. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, like I said, in his last couple fights, he's fought nothing but big, durable, strong power punchers. Tyron Woodley dropped him and almost finished him in both of their fights in 2016 and 2017. He had a full 15 with Jorge Masvidal, who we know hits hard as hell. Same thing with Darren Till. He went all the way 25 minutes with Darren freaking Till, and I actually felt like Stephen Wonderboy won that fight when I watched it. It was close, so I'm not going to cry too much about it, but I do think that Thompson may have won that fight. And then the Showtime Pettis fight. He was in control of Anthony Pettis, and I feel like he may have let his guard down. Anthony Pettis has that explosive concussive power that can KO just about anybody. That's a lot of damage for him to have taken over the last couple of months, and like I said, he is getting older. He is 36 years old. He's got the same reach as Vicente Luque. He is just a little bit taller. He averages 3.52 significant strikes per minute. He absorbs 2.54 significant strikes per minute, so he outstrikes his opponent basically by a full punch or a full significant strike per minute. He has a 78% takedown defense. I think this is going to be a stand-up war. I really don't think that Vicente Luque is going to come in going for the takedown because, like I said, that's kind of a disappointing part of his game. He just doesn't implement it like you would want to see him implement it. Wonderboy has a very, very difficult style to fight against, as proven by Tyron Woodley. Even if you know exactly what you're going to do and you know exactly how you're going to do it, you're still going to have a problem with him. He's just too damn good. He's a very, very good kickboxer. I didn't look up his kickboxing record for you guys. I do apologize. Usually that's the kind of thing that I do. But he's a karate and kickboxer, has a long professional history with lots of KOs. And he hasn't taken hardly any damage in any of his fights until his most recent ones where he has been at the top. So this is kind of a spot where he really needs to bounce back if he wants to continue moving on in mixed martial arts. And Vicente Luque is the young, hungry dog who he's been dropping everybody climbing his way up the ladder. Who do you side with here? It's really close, and the line reflects that. Vicente Luque is a plus 115 underdog with Stephen Thompson sitting at about a minus 130 favorite. You can get him at minus 120. I see Pinnacle's got him at minus 119. 55% of the money has come in on Stephen Thompson, but we have a bit of a reverse line movement spot here. 45% of the money has come in on Vicente Luque. He opened up at plus 125. He is now down to plus 105 or plus 110. I think we're going to take a shot on the dog here with Vicente Luque. I kind of wanted to take Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, like I said, just because of the problems that he poses, but I think that the damage has added up on him. Vicente Luque is... first and foremost, he has more output. Now, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson can still crack, so don't get me wrong. If he finds his spot, he will land it. But I think the output of Vicente Luque is going to make the difference, and the fact that I think that Wonderboy could be compromised coming into this fight is going to make a difference. He got his brain rattled by Tyron Woodley back-to-back. Masvidal... he didn't hit him like hard or rough him up too much, but going 15 minutes with Masvidal is never going to be a good thing for your career. Same thing with the 25 minutes with Darren Till. Darren Till hits hard as shit. And then when he got KO'd by Anthony Pettis, he got flatlined by Anthony Pettis. And Vicente Luque is not a 155er pretending to be a 170er. He is a legitimate 170-pound fighter with very creative striking. And if he's going to be able to hang in there with Wonderboy, I think he'll have higher output. And if anyone's going to land the knockout blow, I would lean on Vicente Luque being the one to do it. Some people have put some damage on Vicente Luque. He's been rocked a couple times, but he has always managed to recover and get back in this thing at 27 years old. I don't think he's at the point where he's broken yet. And somebody like Leon Edwards is the only one to have beaten him. I'm sorry, he lost his UFC debut to Michael Graves, but let's draw a line through that. Since 2015, the only fighter to beat him is Leon Edwards, who's a top 3 guy and legitimately deserves a shot at the title. I mean, he's destroyed everybody else, and he finishes damn near everybody. I don't know how I can go against taking dog money on a finisher like Vicente Luque. And you all know I don't like to step in front of reverse line movement situations, so I think we've got to take the shot here. Let's take Vicente Luque. We've got a plus 105 dog. We've made it to the co-main event where we're hanging out at middleweight. Kelvin Gastelum is welcoming Darren Till up a weight class, and what a fight. Gastelum is 15-4-0. Darren Till is 17-2-1. Formerly the most hyped thing to ever come across the pond. Darren Till belonged up a weight class for a long time. He's kind of an Anthony Rumble Johnson-esque type of fighter, in my opinion, where I think he was at the weight class below for just way too long. He looks big. He looks thick. He looks good and ready to make his 185-pound debut, in my opinion. Now, Kelvin Gastelum, he is always the bridesmaid and never the bride. He is that guy who, unfortunately, is just always one step short. He almost got that title at 170 pounds, and it slipped through his fingers. He didn't quite get the shot, and then he had to move up to 185 because of the weight issues. At 185, he got the fight against Israel Adesanya and put on the fight of the year so far in 2019 against current 185-pound champion Izzy Adesanya. But he went the full 5 rounds with him, and he hurt him. He hurt Izzy more than anybody has ever hurt Izzy in his entire career. Darren Till, he got pushed way too hard, way too soon. He got set up with a good matchup against Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and then he squeaked on by Stephen Thompson. They gave him Tyron Woodley, and that was a mistake. Tyron Woodley handled him, rocked him, put him on the mat, and choked him out. Then he came back, and what I thought was going to be a perfect bounce-back setup fight and shocked me and the world, Jorge Masvidal absolutely handled Darren Till with a beautiful second-round knockout. That was something else. I still haven't picked my jaw up off the floor from that one, because that was the moment where where Jorge Masvidal really became a star. That was the moment where the spotlight shone on Masvidal for everything that he was and has been his entire career, and we've just kind of let him fly under the radar. That was a big one, and I was incredibly wrong in that spot. Darren Till is mostly a boxer. He throws good knees. He does mix in the kicks every once in a while, but he usually uses his hands. He's got a nice long reach. He has a 74-inch reach, and he's 6 foot. So Gastelum is 5'9", as we know, a smaller 185er, and he's got a 71-inch reach. He's got monkey arms. He's got a really long reach for how short he is in the division. It's usually not that big of a problem, but Till having a 3-inch reach advantage is going to pose a bit of an issue. Now, Till averages 2.41 significant strikes per minute. He does have a 46% striking accuracy, and he absorbs 3.09 significant strikes per minute. So he is being outstruck by the majority of his opponents. And that's, yeah. So Gastelum on the flip side of this thing averages 3.83 significant strikes per minute with a 43% accuracy, much higher volume. And then he gets hit 3.06 strikes per minute. So he is hitting his opponent far more often. Well, not far more often. Almost a full strike, significant more over the course of each minute. This fight's not getting taken down. I'm not going to read you the takedown stats or the takedown defense stats because we simply don't need them. This is a fight that I have maybe the biggest issue with on the card is I don't know how this thing is going to go down. There's a couple different thoughts. Darren Till just got his chin snapped by Masvidal. Now, maybe that was him being too big for the division. He's young. He's 26 years old. Maybe he doesn't have a durability issue, but that's the kind of knockout that you maybe don't bounce back from. And Kelvin Gastelum is the guy I was talking about earlier in the show when I said only one more person had more killer instinct. Kelvin Gastelum's killer instinct is something else. He's a cardio machine. He has no problems going 25 full minutes as we saw in the Israel Adesanya fight and just putting it on his opponents. He's got serious pop in his hands. We saw that. He drops and rocks every single opponent. He has dropped or rocked every single opponent in his UFC career. So he hits like a truck, and the key is fast hands. The other thing is he is working with my boy, Henry freaking Cejudo. And that's a camp that you want to be around. It really seems like Henry Cejudo has taken Kelvin Gastelum under his wing. And I think that's an important thing to note. A guy like Henry Cejudo, he's an excellent fighter. He's an amazing fighter. And he's an excellent coach as well. He's the kind of guy that you want to be around, even though I know he's got the whole cringe Cejudo movement thing going on. He's no joke. He's a very serious deal, and he's got a very serious set of skills. He also knows how to blend that wrestler and striker type of game that Kelvin Gastelum himself brings to the table. I think this is a spot where Kelvin Gastelum gets it done. I don't know that Darren Till gets back on track here. I don't know that Darren Till is the big deal that they made him out to be. He's got heavy hands, but I don't know that he has the skill set to hang at the top end of the division. I wanted them to build Till back up. I really wanted him to come back, and I wanted him to take on a lower level opponent, because when you come back and you're taking on the guy who just lost a 25-minute title fight, I mean, he's arguably the top 2 or 3 guy in the division. That means there's only one other place to go from there. You've got to win that fight and then challenge for a belt, or maybe just the guy who lost the belt. Like, there's no ceiling there. You're right back in the title picture. And I think we've proven now that Till maybe doesn't belong in the title picture. And that's not to say that he never will. He's young, he's raw, he could get there, but it's going to take some time. He needs to reset and spend some time working on his skills. He didn't do that. He moved up a weight class, and it was just back in March that he got hurt. Now, that's right around that 6-month point. I like to see people take time off for a big knockout, but that was a bad knockout. I don't know if this is enough time. I think Kelvin Gastelum gets this done. The only problem for me right now is I'm not sure if he gets it done inside the distance or not, because if Darren Till is not compromised, if moving up to 185 pounds helps his chin, if it is something that he gets a benefit from, this thing might go to decision. Even though both of these guys are knockout guys, let's take a look at what they've done recently. Darren Till, now not counting the KO where he suffered from Jorge Masvidal or the submission from Tyron Woodley, he's only got one knockout in the 5 wins before that. Nicholas Dalby was a draw. Jason Ayari was a decision. Bojan was a decision. He KO'd Donald Cerrone, and then he went to decision with Stephen Thompson. Kelvin Gastelum lost a decision to Israel Adesanya, won a decision versus Jacare, KO'd Bisping, which I think we all saw coming, and then he lost a submission to Chris Weidman. So even though he hurt Chris Weidman in that one, and maybe he would finish that one, I mean, the last 2 out of his 3 are by decision. So I have a sneaky feeling that this fight actually goes the full 3 rounds. And Gastelum by 3-round decision is plus 225. That is a juicy prop. You can actually just get the fight goes to decision at plus 105, which I think might be a sneaky sharp kind of spot. But again, I'm not sure, and I don't really want to lay money when I'm very confident on Kelvin Gastelum. I don't want him to get that knockout and then rob me of a good opportunity. I am simply going to lay the wood, which is something I almost never do. I think Kelvin Gastelum is truly a title contender level fighter, and I don't think that Darren Till is there. We don't know how he's going to adjust. We don't know how he's going to bounce back from his last fight. I'm going to roll with Kelvin Gastelum, and I will lay the 2-1 to get there. The best line that we can get right now on Kelvin Gastelum is, you can actually get him -190. I'm going to take Kelvin Gastelum at -190. Well, we did it, ladies and gents. We made it. It is the main event. We are at the title fight, the belt for the baddest motherfucker in the game, where Jorge Masvidal takes on Nate Diaz. And this is a fight that I never, ever expected to see this high profile. I thought that these would be a couple of mid-tier bums fighting near their retirement at this point, at 155, struggling to crack into the top 10. These guys both floated around the middle of 155 and just dropped the ball at the wrong times to never quite crack up to where they could have been. They're both incredibly talented, incredibly skilled, and just decided to hit the gas pedal at the exact right times. They both caught breaks at the right points in their careers, and it catapulted them to the top of the game. They got on the microphone, they said the right things. This is literally the perfect storm. The UFC knows exactly what they've got in their hands right now, and they are making the best of it. As much as from like a purist standpoint, I'm not a huge fan of them creating a belt for this kind of a fight. The fan in me loves it. It's awesome. I mean, even though it's a fake belt, and I hope it's not something that becomes a, hey, we need to defend the baddest motherfucker belt like from all time. Like, if as long as they don't keep doing this, if it really is like a one-time special type of thing, I love it. This is great. They're capitalizing on a huge moment. Both these guys have big fan bases, and this is gonna be big. And they're both legitimately skilled. So first off, I'm going to give a big shout out. One of my favorite podcasts, MMA by the Numbers podcast. Check this guy out. He digs into the numbers way deeper than I do. And thanks to him, we have better numbers to break down on this fight. So significant strikes attempted per minute. Jorge Masvidal 8.89 and Diaz 12.68. Significant strikes landed. Masvidal is 4.18 to Diaz's 6.38. So Diaz has a much, much higher pace than Masvidal does. Now, strikes absorbed per minute. Jorge Masvidal only absorbs 3.05, whereas Nate absorbs 5.44. That's one of those things that you expect to see. If you're outputting more, your opponents are going to fire back more. So Nate has a much higher work rate. His opponents hit him back more. It makes sense. When you look at the ratios, though, Masvidal's striking defense is 55%. Nate's is only 50%. So that makes sense. Masvidal's a little bit more, he picks his shots a bit more, but the striking defense ratio isn't that big of a difference. So takedowns landed over the course of 15 minutes. Masvidal lands about 0.5, Nate 0.4. Neither of these guys really go for takedowns, and especially in this fight, when both of them are trying to prove that they are the baddest motherfucker in this game, I think the only way this thing hits the mat is if we get into some kind of weird clinch situation and one of them gets rocked or one of them gets dropped and the other one tries to take advantage of it. I think they're gonna stand and bang in this particular fight. The takedowns really shouldn't mix into this thing. That's not what these guys are about at this point in time. The numbers really reflect the way that they fight. George Masvidal has some serious power. He's very fast with his hands. He's got really, really long range that he puts to good use, and he's deceptively fast. He trains out of American Top Team. He's got a really good wrestling base that he doesn't implement all that well. Sorry, not all that well, all that often. I misspoke there. Sorry about that. And he's been fighting since everyone's seen the Kimbo Slice videos on YouTube. This dude's been fighting in backyards since he was 16 years old. He's got a 34-13 record, just an absolute wealth of experience, and he's only 34 years old. Diaz is also 34 years old, and he has a lot of experience himself. Kind of a similar situation, kind of a gritty backyard upbringing. His older brother Nate got him into the fight game, 20-11. Now, the big difference here, Jorge's got 15 wins by KO, 17 by decision, and Nate has 11 wins by submission. Even though Nate doesn't take the fight to the ground all that often, it usually ends up landing there after he rocks somebody, and then once it gets down there, he is a wizard on the mat. If he was a bit more of a wrestler, I think he'd have a whole lot more in his game. The problem for me, neither of these guys have really been bet on fighters for a very long time because they don't really follow or stick to game plans. They just want to stand and bang. That's what makes this fight amazing, is that both these guys are going to step in the center of the cage and they're just going to swing until one of them drops. And I don't freaking know. This fight, it's 25 minutes. These guys, it's not like, you know, the other fights where it's 3 rounds and we're going to get left complaining because we didn't like the way that it went or it didn't live up to the hype. No, this fight will live up to the hype. And Jorge's going to land the bigger shots. Nate is going to land more shots. Which guy's chin is going to crack first? I don't know. Nate Diaz has only been KO'd once, and that was with a body kick from Josh Thompson back in 2013. Masvidal's only been KO'd once himself, and that wasn't, although that was way back in 2008. I mean, these guys have chins for days. I think if this is going to get finished, I mean, both these guys are such finishers, though. You can't count out the fact that there's going to be a finish along this fight. I don't even know what to do. Unfortunately, there is no total out for this fight because I would love to see where a total would land because of the way that these guys finish fights, because of the crazy abilities that they have. I hope we get a decent line on that. That may be a play that I tweet out later on in the week because I would be interested in an over. Simply because, especially with the Ben Askren and the Darren Till KOs by Jorge Masvidal, I think the bookies might be edging this thing to the under, and because of Nate's submission ability, I think we might get a decent 2.5 round where we can look at an over. Don't quote me on that. We'll see when the line drops, but if we get a 2.5, I would look to the over. I think this is a dog or pass situation. Masvidal inside the distance is plus 160. That's got some ring to it because of the type of heat that he brings in his punches. Diaz inside the distance is plus 425, which if you're looking for, a value play, there's some value for you because this guy can finish just about anybody. He's only actually gone to decision 4 times and won. He's lost 9 decisions, which that's where if you want to do, if this thing goes to decision, I think Masvidal will have outpointed him on the feet. I could talk myself in circles on this fight, and I'm sure you guys can hear it right now in my breakdown that this fight is so close. And that's really the reason that I think I have to side with the dog. Not because I'm a Nate homer, not because I know somebody in the comments is going to yell at me that Jorge Masvidal is going to crush Nate, and you'll see, and I fucking told you. And that's not what this is about. There's huge fan bases for both of these guys, and I'm not stepping on either of you. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking for a good bet. I don't think that Jorge Masvidal should be a minus 185 favorite. I think that this is a very, very close fight. And if both these guys throw the rule book out the window, which they both tend to do, and it becomes a boxing match, I'm going to take the guy that's plus 155 when we flip that coin. And I think that's the only way that I can go because I have to give a pick on every single damn fight, which I'm now regretting. I'm going to have to roll with Nate. I can't lay that kind of wood on Jorge Masvidal. I simply can't trust him, and I can trust Nate's chin. So there you go. That's what we're working with. We're going to rock with Nate Diaz at plus 155 on the main event. As my cousin Michelle always says, you don't bet against crazy. And I know neither of these guys are stable, but if you had to pick one that's a little bit crazier than the other, Nate is definitely the crazier one. Now let's talk strategy for just a quick second here. What we talked about is because again, this is an entertainment show. I'm trying to give you guys good betting advice and show you a good time for this big old event. We're going to put a bet on every single one of these fights. So even though the record is going to reflect that these are units, what I suggest doing is chopping down your unit size. If you're legitimately going to bet every single one of these fights, you need to be aware of your bankroll. We don't want to just plunge all of your bankrolls with this kind of a shot. Now, granted, if we win more than we lose, then hey, hooray, we win money. But bankroll management is a super big important thing to me. A lot of people talk about betting and they talk about, going all in on a play, and then they lost this much money and they regret it and it hurts, and then they reload and they come back. I don't want that to be Diehard MMA Podcast. Listeners, 1 unit is 1/100th of your bankroll, okay? Or it can be 2 or 3% of your bankroll, but that's the biggest. You do not want 1 unit to be 10% of your bankroll. You will bust immediately. So when we're doing this kind of an exercise where we're betting every single fight on the card, maybe chip that unit size down a little bit because we've got so much action in play. Go 0.75. Go 75% of a unit instead of a full unit, or go, 60 or 80% of a unit, not a full unit. That way, if for whatever reason we end up being more wrong than right, it's not a crippling type of night. This would just be terrible if it was the infamous reverse sweep type of situation. I don't think it will be. I actually like a lot of these picks. But obviously, I would pick my favorite 5 or so out of this whole group, and we wouldn't be rolling with 27 picks. Let's recap the picks. We are kicking the night off with Hakeem Dawodu at -138. We're going to roll with Chance the Black Eagle Rencountre at +105. We are going to roll with Katlyn Chookagian to get it done by decision at -110. We're going to count on Rozenstruik to land that big knockout punch at -150. Edmen Shahbazyan, the young phenom, we are looking for him to stay undefeated at -120. We are going to look for Kevin Lee to bounce back at +140. He's our biggest, juiciest dog on the card. We have parlayed Shane Burgos and Johnny Walker for a +128 payout. We're going to roll with the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis, looking for him to land a big punch as well at +113. Vicente Luque at +105. We're betting on youth. And then we're going to lay the wood -190 with Kelvin Gastelum to show Till that he is not ready for the top of 185. We're going to roll the dice on Nate Diaz at +155. And that is UFC 244, ladies and gents. Have a great time. Sacrifice a goat. Good luck to us all. Comment, share, like, retweet, subscribe. Let's roll.